back again for another video. So I had another topic that I was going to actually do, but I think this one that I came up with as of yesterday is a lot better. This is in regards to a comment that was made by D Stu, and his comment was about how he actually was or is dealing with a woman, but he initially had to tell her that she knew nothing about men and that her fantasy world was was not real, rather, and that shattered her, and that shattered her fantasy world because he brought her to the reality of what a man is. And that's what this topic is going to be about. I think let's start here. The whole notion of how did we get here? How did we get here? We got here by way of slavery. We got here by way of Jim Crow. We got here by way of civil rights. We got here by way of the proliferation of single mother households as it is now. But all along during that way, from the time we got here up until the time of now, rarely were men able to be men in regards to black men. They were rarely able to be themselves. So throughout a history of matriarchy, nobody understood what a masculine black man really personified. Then the reason why they didn't understand that is because the black man was always under oppression. Even still to this day, there is a large suppression of masculinity going on. And this is very much rooted in the attack at all men, but very specific to black men in many different ways. So at no point in time have women ever, by and large, I'm not saying that there were not, our leaders, they existed, but they were small and few in between compared to the millions of black men that there were at the time and that there are now. A handful of masculine men cannot represent the whole population because that's an improper sample, if you know anything about sampling. So therefore, the majority of what black women experienced was not a man being able to be a man. So on one hand, I do understand the whole notion of not needing a man, quote unquote, right? Because yes, you don't need a suppressed man. But here's the thing that you don't understand, women, is that a suppressed man is not an actual man. He's not operating in his full masculinity because it's being suppressed. So yeah, there are some men out there who you can deal with just fine because he's a suppressed man, or he chooses to be the level of masculinity that he is. And you think that this is the baseline. This is the high bar, not the baseline rather, but this is the high bar of the pinnacle of male existence when it comes to the black man. You are incorrect. Just like when these two girl has come across him, her whole notion, her whole lifestyle, her whole life, it's almost like being introduced to the red pill. You understand that everything that you've been told is now a lie. But this is what you believe your entire life, that you didn't need a man. Yes, you don't need half of a man. You need a whole man. I totally agree with you. But the thing is, you don't even know what that looks like for the first part. And the second part, you don't have what it takes most times in order to be able to maintain that man in the first place. So yes, you need it, but you also need a few more things to go along with maintaining such a man. But anyways, my next part that I want to talk about this topic is that let's go with the whole notion that, there are some women who feel wholeheartedly that they don't need a man. First off, I denoted that in my previous videos of how a woman is telling herself a lie, and she relegates herself to the reality, so she creates the fantasy as a result of her existence, because her existence does not make her feel good. It's all about the feels, right? So she has to create a fantasy world, and in this fantasy world, she doesn't need a man. But even if she believed that tangibly, Let's say that she believed that tangibly, that she recognizes that all these men are so-called subpar, but she's never ran into an actual man more than likely. Remember, the actual men do not represent the majority of black men. They don't. It's unfortunate, but that's just the way it is. So how do you know you don't need a man if you never ran into an actual man? A man who was not suppressed, a man who was operating in his dominance, a man who was operating in his authority and his masculinity at full scope. How do you know you don't need that if you've never been able to define what that is in your own life? How? How could you possibly know that? It's almost like saying, okay, before I was introduced into anything about science, I was quick to say what I need and what I didn't need, but this was based off of ignorance, ignorant perspective. Not saying that I was stupid or choosing to ignore, but it was a lack of knowledge, a lack of knowledge that I could have attained at the time, but it was a lack of knowledge nonetheless. And I had a lot of philosophies, a lot of different thoughts about how the world works and its existence. And I believed a lot of things. This goes back to the whole thing about how we tell these superstitions in the black community and somehow it becomes law. And it's just like, well, that's not really rooted in actual reality. And there's no science to support that. Like, I mean, people, let's go with the whole, personality test, the Myers-Briggs test. That's considered to be pseudoscience. But people by and large go by that because that's all they know. They don't know the history behind it and why it is pseudoscience and why it's not highly repeatable. There are some attributes to the Myers-Briggs test that are correct, but personalities are too diverse for you to try to sum them up in 4 damn letters. It's just not going to happen. But nonetheless, people widely understand that this is how you define a person. But someone like me who has a different understanding of knowledge in regards to these tests and how they were conducted and what a scientific method actually is, says that this is incorrect. But when I walk around, no one can see that. No one can see what's in my mind. No one can see that I am very different from those who believe the opposite of what I do. No one can see that. The only way they can see that is my behavior, and if we happen to come across that conversation, it's all about how I present myself, right? So that's the same thing with these women. They don't know what the truth of things is because they've never been introduced to it. All they know is the things that have been passed down through the community based on the ignorance that this is the pinnacle of what a man's existence is. It's not true. It's not true at all. I'm a living representation of that. No, I don't have 7 degrees. No, I don't have, millions of dollars. But that's not what defines a man. You've been told lies anyways. So if you're using that for a baseline to define what a so-called high value man is, you're already feeding into the ignorance. There's so much more to what a man is, and it's unfortunate that majority of you will never know what that is. And it's almost a snake eating its tail type of thing, because part of the reason why you'll never know what that is because your foremothers didn't do their job in regards to what they were supposed to do in bringing up those men so that they were no longer under oppression or being suppressed by their own community, right? They didn't have a father. Whatever choices you made when you opened your womb, well, that woman made when she opened her womb, is a product of what echoed past that point. She cannot be absolved because a father is not around. She chose him. She let him do what he needed to do. Well, what he wanted to do, rather. And I understand. There's some men out there who tell lies. But the thing is, that's the reason why we had the structures that we had in regards to the vetting process. If you're going to take the power of being able to select your mate, because it didn't used to be that way. Mate selection was done by the family, more so approved by the father and handed off by the father. But y'all don't want to do that no more. I'm not saying that maybe you do want to do it and you just haven't been introduced to, you weren't brought into a family that practices that because the father is whatever, but that's still on the woman because she chose that. knowing or unknowing what the consequences are. It's still just because you go to another state and you don't understand the laws, or another country, because this has happened before, and you don't understand the laws, don't mean that you're absolved from what the consequences are of breaking those laws. This is no different. Just because you didn't have the knowledge readily available about how to select a man doesn't mean that you're absolved of the consequences for making the wrong selection. No different. Same exact thing. So when it comes to the men that you have now, the foremothers are partly to blame for this. They're largely to blame for this, because the reason why you haven't been introduced to an actual man is because of what those women did before you were birthed, more than likely. Because I often say that you should select a man that is your senior, and not like 30 years, but I'm talking about older than you, but nonetheless, that's neither here nor there. But the whole notion of that these men just exist, no, they were created. They were created by circumstances that a woman helped build, and you are repeating that by not submitting to a higher authority. You are repeating that because you're not seeking a higher authority in order to delegate where these problems could be weeded out, so that you misstep all the consequences that come along with having a lack of knowledge and poor decision making. You could avoid this. But anyways, I'm getting off topic a little bit here. My whole point of bringing this up is because I want to show that there are only a certain amount of real men because of the circumstances that I just named off. So it's unfortunate that a lot of you are not going to ever be able to meet any real man. So you think that just because you meet, F-boys, F-bombs, your entire life, that's what all black men are, or every man that you met. That sets the tone for everything. That's ignorance, and it's unfortunate. But once again, like I said, I'm the guy walking down the street who you don't understand masculinity because you've never seen it before. You don't know how to pick up on the signs of what a masculine man represents because you drunk the Kool-Aid. You have accepted the reality that society has forced down your throat, which is nothing but an illusion of what a man is supposed to be. Nothing about this society is supportive of a black man being masculine. Really think about it. Point to me anywhere. If it's not on the court, if it's not playing some sports, where can a man be masculine? He can't even be masculine in playing roles in movies. Where can a black man be masculine in this society? Where? Tell me, what part of society is supporting the upholding of masculinity? Every new thing that they come out with, this Juneteenth, this LGBTQ thing, this everything, none of this stuff supports masculinity. None of it. What does? What does? Yes, I remember coming across a video that was it was like by Black Star or something like that. But anyway, a monument of a former slave had been erected in the place of I don't know, probably was a white slave owner or something like that for a town. I can't remember, but it was defaced. That's not the reason why I bring this up, though. I bring this up because even when black men are represented, we're still represented as subjugated people by society. We're still represented as subjugated people. We're still represented as oppressed. That's the highest representation that society will allow to be represented for what the black man stands for. That's the truth of it. So it's unfortunate that majority of you will not meet a real man. But I'm here to tell you right now that those men that you run across, who you are gauging whether this is a real man or not, probably are not. And they don't set this bar or the standard for what a real man is. So before you tell me about or tell anybody else about what you don't need, you need to figure out exactly what you're talking about first. How do you know you don't need that? You don't even know what it is. But anyways, like, comment, and share. Catch me on Patreon. Catch me on Facebook. But until next time, this has been the Wolf and Beta Close. May you have a good day, and peace be with you.